Hey everyone, and welcome to Planet Zoo. Today we're starting a brand new franchise zoo located in Gilbert, Arizona. We've got a lot of work to do before we open our gates to the public, so let's get started. I absolutely love franchise mode. For anyone new to Planet Zoo, franchise mode challenges you to build and manage a growing zoo while working within a realistic budget. Part of the reason I'm starting this series now is because I can't stop thinking about the recent Planet Zoo announcement. I'm so excited to see what Frontier has planned for the sequel, and while we're waiting for news, I figured there's no better excuse to dive back into Planet Zoo. This also means that this series has a natural endpoint. Planet Zoo releases in October, and I can't wait to get my hands on the next chapter of this franchise. But for now, let's get back to the build. One of the first things I did was move the entrance and guest spawners. For the longest time, I had no idea you could even do that. But it's one of the most important steps if you want to create a fully customized zoo from the ground up. Customization is a major goal for this project. I've never been the most confident builder in Planet Zoo because I'm definitely not an architect, but I'm committed to learning and improving as this zoo grows. I chose Gilbert, Arizona as the setting because I currently live in Arizona and Gilbert has experienced incredible growth over the past several years, so I think it makes sense for a zoo to be constructed here with the population Gilbert and the surrounding area has. Of course, building a zoo in Gilbert creates some interesting challenges. The biggest one is competition. Just a short drive away is the Phoenix Zoo, a large and highly successful zoo that my wife and I visit regularly. If Gilbert Zoo is going to succeed, it needs to offer something different. Another challenge is Arizona's famous heat. Anyone familiar with the state knows that the summer temperatures can be brutal. Keeping both our animals and guests safe and comfortable will be one of our biggest priorities, which means we'll need plenty of shade, cooling areas, and thoughtful habitat design throughout the zoo. With the entrance relocated and a vision beginning to take shape, it's finally time to start building our first exhibit, the Coyote Habitat. Also known as the Coyote Canyon. Choosing the coyote as our entrance animal is no accident. Coyotes are surprisingly common throughout Arizona and can be found in parks, nature trails, washes, neighborhoods, and other open spaces. Because of that, I think it's important to educate guests about these native Arizona neighbors. Education is a huge priority for this exhibit. Coyotes play a vital role in Arizona's ecosystem, and I think it's time for more Arizonans to learn about them and how these incredible animals have adapted alongside humans throughout the state's history. In Planet Zoo, coyotes also require a considerable amount of space. Like many larger canine species in the game, they need room to roam, which can sometimes make them difficult for guests to see. Real-life zoo visitors often have similar experience with wild dogs, so I wanted to design a habitat that would encourage more consistent viewing opportunities. To accomplish that, I designed a habitat that's long rather than deep. This design encourages guests to spread out along the viewing area while still giving the coyotes plenty of room to explore and exhibit natural behaviors. The coyote habitat is the first exhibit in a larger section of the zoo that I'm calling Great State 48. This area will showcase animals that can be found throughout Arizona. The Phoenix Zoo does something similar, and it's always fun to learn more about the unique wildlife that calls Arizona home. The theme for Great State 48 is the Wild West, complete with Western-themed architecture and storytelling elements inspired by Arizona's history. As the zoo grows, this area will become home to many of the state's most iconic animal species. My vision for this exhibit is to create 3 indoor viewing areas, similar to this one, that will give guests a chance to escape the Arizona heat while observing the coyotes. I also wanted to create a Western-themed walkway that provides opportunities to include Arizona history and educational signage, much like you would find in a real zoo. This gives guests a chance to learn about both Arizona's fascinating past and the coyote itself, creating an experience that feels distinct from the Phoenix Zoo's exhibit. This walkway stretches roughly 60 meters and provides space for zoo essentials like restrooms, dining locations, and staff facilities. For the architecture, I'm drawing inspiration from classic Wild West towns, complete with wooden boardwalks and frontier-style buildings. I think the wooden walkways really help sell the Western atmosphere. To add some visual variety, I'm alternating between covered balconies and angled roof lines while incorporating exposed wooden support beams throughout the area. Arizona has a rich history of mining. During and after the California Gold Rush, many prospectors traveled through Arizona searching for opportunities along the Colorado River and throughout the territory. In the late 1800s, discoveries of gold and silver often led to boom towns appearing almost overnight. Just as quickly, many of those towns were abandoned when the mines ran dry or the ore veins failed to produce as expected. Coyotes were among the animals that adapted to these rapidly changing landscapes. They frequently lived around mining camps, settlements, and abandoned towns, taking advantage of the opportunities created by human activity. Because of that connection, I've decided to theme the habitat around one of Arizona's historic mining communities. The habitat itself will represent the surrounding wilderness, while the guest viewing area will be inspired by the small frontier towns that sprang up to support Arizona's miners. My hope is that guests won't just see a coyote exhibit, they'll also feel like they've stepped into a small piece of Arizona history. I feel like no mining-themed exhibit would be complete without a railroad, and this habitat is no exception. I built a small section of track and extended it throughout the exhibit. Eventually, I have plans to build a train ride for guests going around the Great State 48, but that's gonna have to wait for a future episode. For now, the coyotes will have an abandoned railway running through their habitat, and honestly, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it adds a lot of character to the exhibit. I spent quite a bit of time debating what to do with the coyotes' shelter and backstage area. In the end, I decided to hide most of the functional space behind a themed facade. Truthfully, the shelter itself is mostly a concrete box disguised behind a mine entrance, but above it I built a Western-style structure that would have served as an office overseeing the mining operation when the site was still active. I really wanted this building to feel old and abandoned, so I intentionally rotated and adjusted each wooden railing to make them look weathered and worn. It's a small detail, but I think those imperfections do a lot to sell the illusion that this mine has been sitting untouched for decades. With the coyote habitat largely complete, I decided it was time to shift my attention to the zoo entrance. Gilbert is a rapidly growing city with plenty of modern architecture, so I wanted the entrance to feel welcoming and impressive while still fitting naturally into the community. One challenge I constantly face in Planet Zoo is my tendency to build everything on the grid. It's simple and efficient, but if I'm not careful, the entire zoo can start to look like a collection of oversized boxes. For the entrance especially, I knew I needed to push myself outside my comfort zone. My first attempt was this large shaded walkway for guests. I actually liked the concept quite a bit, but the more I looked at it, the more I felt like it wasn't quite right for the entrance. Sometimes a build just doesn't click, and this was one of those cases, so I decided to scrap it and move on. Before guests can enter the zoo though, I need animals to attract them. That means placing a trading center and connecting it to the path network. I always struggle with these essential buildings. In Planet Zoo, facilities like the trading center negatively impact guest happiness, which makes placing them challenging. They need to be accessible for staff while staying far enough away that guests don't constantly complain about them. Since you only need one animal trading center, I like to place it near the entrance. Placing it here keeps it convenient for staff while remaining just far enough away from the main guest areas to minimize complaints. It's a practical solution. I really wish Planet Zoo rewarded beautiful staff facilities with positive reactions. If I spend the time making a building look amazing, guests should appreciate it. But, that's a conversation for another day. With the animal trading center now in place, it will be one of the first buildings guests see when they enter the zoo, so I wanted it to make a strong first impression. And if there's one thing I've learned in Planet Zoo, it's that circular shapes can make a build feel way more interesting. Using plaster and wood panels, I created a small section of the building that I could rotate using the mud pillar trick to give the building a subtle curve. I've known about this technique for a long time, but I'll admit it still intimidates me a little, so I don't use it very often. Even so, I'm really happy with how this build is turning out. I also used the same technique to create a curved wall that helps frame the entrance. It's a small detail, but I think it adds a lot more character than a standard straight wall would have. Next up is a large circular sunshade for the entrance. I followed a similar process, building a small section and rotating it repeatedly to create the final shape. Once I placed it, I couldn't imagine the entrance without it. It quickly became one of my favorite parts of the build. Admittedly, I'm a little concerned that the sunshade looks like it's floating in midair and isn't properly supported, but that's a future Scotty problem. I'll come back later and add some structural support beams once the overall entrance design is further along. For now, it's time to return to the coyote habitat and start adding natural scenery throughout the zoo. The abandoned railroad serves as one of the main focal points of the exhibit, so I want the surrounding environment to reinforce the story I'm trying to tell. By carefully placing vegetation, rocks, and terrain around the tracks, I can create the impression that this mine was once active but has been abandoned for years, slowly being reclaimed by the Arizona wilderness. I spent some time in Photoshop creating a few simple custom infographics that I could place around the zoo to help educate guests about Arizona's history and the coyote itself. Rather than just placing them on walls though, I wanted to find some more creative ways to incorporate them into the exhibit. I wasn't a huge fan of the viewing areas being little more than empty squares because that doesn't feel very realistic. Real zoos try to maximize every opportunity for education and guest engagement. With that in mind, I decided to create a small nature showcase within the viewing area. Not only does that help tell the story of Arizona's wildlife, but it also gives guests something interesting to look at if the coyotes happen to be tucked away when they visit. These infographics also inspired me to create a few vista points for guests to explore, small areas that help tell the story I'm trying to create throughout the exhibit. Using scenery pieces, I built a decorative railway display along with a small abandoned mine scene. I think these little historical set pieces really help make the area feel more immersive, while also giving guests something interesting to discover as they explore the habitat. Before bringing our coyotes into their new home, I spent some time customizing the Flexicolor pieces to better match the theme of the area. A fresh coat of paint really helped some of these builds stand out, and honestly, we love to see that. I felt like our boomtown needed a little more life, so I added more tables, seating, and potted plants throughout the area. Small details like these help the town feel more populated and make it seem like a thriving community rather than a collection of buildings. And with that, I think it's finally time to introduce the coyotes to their new habitat. Here's our staff relocating the coyotes. I also have to say I really love how the Animal Trading Center looks near the entrance. I really think it helps give the zoo a strong first impression. And now here are the coyotes themselves. They look absolutely incredible in Planet Zoo, and their sound design is amazing too. Gilbert Zoo currently has 2 coyotes, so hopefully we'll have some pups in the near future. Now that we finally have animals in the zoo, here's a look at our very first guests. They seem pretty excited to visit Gilbert Zoo's Coyote Canyon. It's honestly so rewarding seeing guests explore the boomtown and wander through the area, but I think my favorite part is watching the coyotes roam across the abandoned railroad tracks. Seeing the animals interact with the environment really helps bring the entire exhibit to life. This is also one of my favorite animations in the game. I'm really happy I was able to record that. I love watching the coyotes play in the beaver pool. It seems our guests are really enjoying the coyotes, which is really great to see. Well guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing for more Planet Zoo and Planet Zoo 2 content in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!